Well, on this one now, classic rock. Well, I think someone once said, "How do you fit classic rock in? When was it classic rock, and what was it classic rock?" Well, you have to go through all the rock stages. I mean, it was rockabilly when it started out in the early 50s and to mid 50s. Rock and roll had taken over. It was a big more explosion. Rock and roll, and they kept rock and roll going into the 60s. But then, of course, the big bands and the Beatles and that came along, and they were only pop bands really at first. Mersey Beat, they were only beat bands. Um, Next on the scene of rock, about the mid 60s, the Beatles changed to a rock band. And steadily there were other rock bands as well, from the mid 60s. Some of that has obviously become classic, and that lasts up to the late 80s or so when alternative took over. But of course, now a lot of alternative tunes are rock tunes as well, rock classic. And this it's the main period of rock between rock and roll. Remember, there was also a rock and roll revival in the 70s. I was with Mud and Shawty Waddy and Gary Glitter and all them, well, this classic rock, it deals with the golden era. It's early 70s, we had all over. Meatloaf, then it's going to be 80s. Hawkwind was just the border of the 70s. ELO, 70s. Eric Burdon, his House of the Rising Sun was in the 60s, but this is Eric Burden's version. Blue Oyster Cult. Uh, Classic rock Atomic Rooster tunes, but even the Knack is classic rock. Jay Giles Band, Steve Harley, it's on here. Jerry Rafferty, Cutting Crew is classic rock. There you are. That's classic rock for you.